So my friend Marius has been asking me to make some buttermilk rusks. He's a big coffee drinker, and there's nothing better than dipping a buttermilk rusk in a cup of coffee. So I am going to make buttermilk rusks. The problem, of course, is that you don't get buttermilk. Well, even if you get buttermilk, I don't know where to get it. So I am going to make my own buttermilk. So I've done a bit of research. So it's basically 1 cup of milk with 2 tablespoons of vinegar, and you stir that around and you leave it for 10 minutes, and then apparently you have buttermilk. That's one way. Another way is doing equal parts plain yogurt to water and mixing that together, and apparently that works as well. So I'm going to try the vinegar method first to make my buttermilk. So I have the oven preheating already at 190 degrees Celsius, which is 375 Fahrenheit. So I've got my milk, and I need 2 cups of milk for the recipe, and well, actually 2 cups of buttermilk. So I'm going to put in 2 cups of milk with 4 tablespoons of vinegar. There's 1. 2. Right, now it's got to be 4 tablespoons of vinegar. Oh, I have to cut the top off this thing. First, get the vinegar out. Okay, let's do this. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So now if I stir this around, and then I'm supposed to leave it for 10 minutes, and then it's supposed to curdle, and then that means that I'm going to have buttermilk. So we're going to see if this is going to work. Instead of vinegar, I could be using lemon juice, but I don't have lemons or lemon juice, but I do have lots of vinegar. So I'm going to put this aside and let it hopefully curdle. So what else you are going to need, if you don't have your 2 cups of buttermilk and you got to make your own, this is what you're going to do. But you are going to need to have 1 kilo of self-raising flour. You're going to have 4/5 of a cup of sugar, about 200 mils of sugar. So it's almost 1 cup of sugar. And you're going to have 1 cup of butter, 2 eggs, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Whoops, where is it? There, baking powder. And you are going to have a 1/2 teaspoon of, actually it's not a 1/2 teaspoon, I lie, 2 teaspoons of salt. Right, so while this is going, I'm going to put the kilo of flour into my mixing bowl and add in the baking powder. When I've done that, I'm then going to melt this 1 cup of butter, and I'll add the sugar to that and the salt. And then by that stage, hopefully the buttermilk will be ready for me to add that as well when it's lukewarm. And then I'll add the eggs. Right. So I'm now going to put 2 teaspoons of salt into the butter that's melting. Turn the heat down a bit. I don't want it to be boiling. I'm now going to add in my 1 cup of sugar. It's just under a cup, really. Right, I'll mix that in now. So the buttermilk doesn't seem to be, well, the milk that I put the vinegar in doesn't seem to be curdling. So I'm actually going to add in, I've got a container over here of natural yogurt, plain yogurt. I'm going to add that in just to be sure. I'm probably too impatient and not waiting long enough for it to curdle. But I do have a fruit vinegar and not grape vinegar, so I don't know if that makes a difference. But yeah, I'm going to add in some plain yogurt. So I've added in some plain yogurt as well. So I'm now going to add the warm butter, sugar with the 2 teaspoons of salt mixture into this and mix it around, and then I'm going to add in the 2 eggs. Right, let me just mix this. When I add in the eggs, I'm going to have to beat very quickly. In fact, I might beat the eggs first because I don't want the eggs to cook in this lukewarm mixture I've got over here. So it is just lukewarm, it won't cook the eggs, so that's good. So I'm just going to add the eggs in and make sure that I beat well after each addition. I'm hoping this buttermilk that I've made is going to be working. Right, 1 egg in, second one in. Right, so this mixture that I've made now, with all of this lukewarm thing. So with the flour, I've now made a well in the middle, which I'll show you. And then I'll be pouring this mixture into that well and then mixing it together. So here's the flour, made like a little well in the middle, and I am going to pour this in now. And like mix it up. Just do a little bit of a mix and then I'll pour some more. So what I'm making now is not a batter. I'm making like a thick, stiff dough. Add some more. Right. Keep mixing this all together. I'm just thinking, because I added in that yogurt, maybe I must just add in a bit more flour because it's a bit runny. It's not supposed to be runny. Right, so you can see I've made a soft dough. So I'm actually going to roll these into like this into balls, and I'm going to put it into this baking tray over here. You should grease this, but I prefer to use baking paper. When I've made these rusks in the past, I've actually added in cornflakes and raisins or currants as well. So you want to knead it a little bit, like I'm doing now. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to form like little balls. And these balls you will then put into the baking thing. And you want them close to each other. They've got to like push up against each other. So just make balls. Get your fingers all stuck together with this. There we go. And put this in. That's it, like that. Okay, so all those balls are in like that. I had a little bit left over, so I've just added in some fruit bran cereal, and I'm going to put these balls into the smaller one. I don't have enough to fill up the whole pan, but that's okay. So I'm going to pop these into the oven. They'll go for about 30 minutes, and then I turn the heat off and I just leave them in that oven for the oven to then cool down, because then they dry out, and that's what makes them rusks, because they have to be dry. So I've taken the rusks out the oven. So now what I have to do is break them up into smaller pieces, and then I'm going to put them on this other baking sheet, and then you separate it so that they can dry out. So I've just emptied them out now. It's hot though, but I need to break them up into small pieces. So I'll break this into half again. And then I'll put some on this sheet and then some back in there. So I've broken up the rusks, and I now put them back in the oven so they can dry out and become hard, so you can dunk it in your tea or coffee.